Google Docs.
but I
That's what
didn't.
it's all about. Google Docs.
I just, I don't know where I put them. I really
Hey, that's
just
what
don't
happens.
know. I thought,
I went old
anyway,
school.
All right, let's start this thing out because we are live.
Are we?
okay.
Woohoo!
All right. Hey, everybody, it's Bobby here on this Crazy TV Talk. We're doing Continuum, episodes 4 through 6. And
Yeah.
this is a neat little concept that Jadine came up with, and we're kind of going with it. I really like it. Basically, we watch 3 episodes and then discuss specific points. We're going to talk about the best scene, the best character development, the best line, the worst and most confusing scene, and the overall score out of 5. So those are the rules of the game. And let's the games begin, as they say. Jadine, how you doing,
Yeah.
man?
I'm doing really good. I'm super excited. Thanks, Stephanie, for joining us in the next part of this adventure. I'm loving this show more and more and more. So this has just been a great adventure.
Okay. And Stephanie, what do you think now that you've had a chance to watching shows and making notes and stuff like that? Are you loving it more and more and more? Or is
Well,
it
yes, because
about the
it's
same
actually
the same?
forcing me to go back and take a look at it a little bit more critically. And what I'm finding is that there are story arcs from season 1 all the way into season 3. And anytime they do that, ooh, jitters.
Yeah, they're getting really consistent because that's the thing is you would think that on further examination there would be this fall apart, and I'm finding that there's a deeper connective tissue that's going on more and more, and it's making me wonder about certain characters that we met before or certain things where we're like, oh, what did they know then and what do they know now?
Mm.
So it's starting to really have this kind of mystery. And part of it, I'm sure I'm creating in my head. So either way, I'm making it much more entertaining.
Oh man, the
Definitely.
life of a critic. What can I
So,
say?
so we're going to cover 3 episodes. We're going to cover episode 4, 5, and 6. So a minute changes everything, 30 minutes to air, and wasted minute.
All right, excellent. Well done. I didn't even know the name of the titles of those shows.
Nice.
Do they say that at the beginning of the shows? I don't see that in the
No,
credits.
they don't actually say. Oh, you know what? Do
Where'd you
they?
find that information out?
Well, the internet.
IMDb.
Online.
Yeah,
Online.
I'm like,
Um,
oh,
yeah,
hey.
and they post it before release dates, and of course everything in season 3 has the word minute in it, and season 2 had second in it, and season 1 had time in every title, and
Ah, there
that's
you
they
go.
picked a theme for every season, which is what's so great about the layering that they do in this show.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get into the questions, we had a little preamble before we turned all the cameras on and stuff. And that was apparently there are some webisodes out there, and Stephanie was all over that. So give us a little bit of a breakdown, Steffi.
Okay, I think if anybody knows Wildfire Effect Media, if anybody knows Stephanie M. Scott, then you know one of the #1 things I love is that when a web series goes interactive. When a television show does it, it's even more fun.
Mm.
And what they have done, always a leader, in my opinion, Continuum, have actually done an interactive video on Showcase. So, of course, their distributor is Showcase, and if you go to watch the episodes on Showcase, you can actually, it does 2 things. It has a point that you can click on that will tell you the behind the scenes of shooting it in the Vancouver area. Where is it really shot? What type of interesting things, like I believe in one of the episodes we realized that Alex's vehicle is actually Amanda Tapping's vehicle, who was the director of that particular episode.
Yep.
It also offers up a click through to transmedia, and that would be webisodes that will enrich the story, and they're usually about 2 or 3 minutes long, and talk about what happened just prior to that portion of the scene, or what is happening almost if it was paralleled out in that very moment of the scene that you're looking and watching.
But it's
So
fully
it's just a
produced.
really cool way to get involved.
Right, but they're being fully produced. I mean, it looks like part of the show. It's
It
not some
looks
made-up TV thing.
absolutely part of the show.
Yeah.
Like they shot it, on all the sets, on everything. They're full lighting, full everything, inside shots, outside shots. Some of it is amazing, and some of it is just like simple character things that you would think about, and they answer for, and you go, oh, that's what happened. Oh, that makes sense. A lot of connective tissue stuff. The first one is actually from the end of season 2. when Kira's being led down the hallway, and she's talking to one of the freelancers, and she talks about Curtis. And they talk about a theory of time travel and death, that once you get into quantum mechanics, there's this thing past death, because essentially when she traveled in time, all of her atoms were destroyed, so she's really not alive. She just exists in another timeline, or simultaneous timelines, or there's what a little gem of information to talk about in that. And Steph, talk about the second one, which is Betty and my favorite character, Cocaine Lawyer, show up.
Actually, I'm actually trying to. You know what? You can talk about that one. I remember specifically the Julian one because it added so much to episode 5, actually.
So this is like leading into episode 1, basically, and reestablishing that Betty is, and we're going to get into this in episode 4 here, that Betty is connected with Liberate and is the mole in the police station. So she's in an elevator, and Cocaine Lawyer's there, and he's got a big envelope of money for her. And he has this really gross conversation with her where they're talking about cockroaches, and she basically, puts him up against the wall and chokes him out, and because he's acting like such an a-hole. And it was amazing to see that kind of fury in her, which is kind of funny because we don't really see that until I think episode 5 from Betty. So it was a preamble to it, so it's neat to go back and see it and go, oh, that's where, like, she's an interesting character. She's not just some IT person. She's got some oomph behind her. And of course, I always love that lawyer. He's just nuts. He's my fave.
Oh, right. And I want to do a call back to Betty and Interactive as well, because if you remember, if anyone was following season 2 in Continuum, that entire season was about what side will Betty fall on. Will she be Liberate, or will she be more of the kind of the policing force around it? And the fact that they didn't even know how that was going to go, and then turned it into a bit of a webisode for season 3, like, this show is blowing my mind. It really is.
and the fans ended up picking her to be Liberate, so that's the way she went as a character, and they designed it that way. I think it's fantastic.
That is very, very cool. That's very modern. Very modern. All right, guys, let's get back let's get back to the questions after my impromptu weirdness. Okay. Show number 4. Best scene. Let's start with Stephanie. We gave a chance to pick ours because you know what happened last time we did this? We were picking our own best scene. So I'm very curious to see what's happening with the best scenes for you guys. So Stephanie, you're up.
Oh. Okay, well, great. Well, if you remember, in episode 4, we're really talking about the whole college student thing and the riots, and now we're starting to see the beginning of maybe there's a bit of a conspiracy around the corporate, maybe there's not. We're starting to kind of fall on one side or the other, or at least it's letting the audience in, knowing that it isn't as black and white as we thought. And there was a particular scene when Carlos and Kira and the inspector are all kind of sitting in the room, and they're talking about this whole idea of, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's the fence. The concept that we sometimes don't show all of the cameras in, because we don't want to actually incriminate our policing force or things that might happen in the area. So in that particular scene, I found it very, very interesting because there was not only an explanation of something that I think is going to be extremely important, but there's an interaction, like there's a visual interaction that happens between Carlos and the inspector talking about this scene, and there's this kind of eye contact thing they're doing where we're now starting to see, what side is the inspector on? And I love the fact that it was this, if you caught it, you had to catch it. It was like in a second where you noticed it wasn't a casual conversation. It almost as if Carlos was hitting on to something that maybe he shouldn't be hitting on to. And I was just fascinated by what that possibility meant. So that was my favorite scene.
That's awesome because Carlos is, to me, he's starting to really blossom as a character in this series. In these 3 episodes specifically, because we saw him unwinding at the end of like episode 3. You can see him hitting the bottle and losing his mind a bit. But here he starts to get back bigger than ever in all 3 of these episodes. An amazing character, and he's not only becoming a leader, and that's what part of that is he's starting to speak his mind now. He's really starting to challenge everything around him. And that's that scene. I hear what you're saying. It's really powerful. The subtleties that are happening in some of those things, and they're talking about the technology. It was the wall, and they turn it on, and it turns off all the cell phones, and that way people in the area that are bottlenecked, whether they're criminals or anybody, rioters or whatever it is, people on strike, it doesn't matter. They can't communicate in that system. So neat use of technology and a neat use of control. It's pretty neat.
Do you think Carlos is definitely darker now? These 3 episodes, because I'm getting that feeling where he's got a little bit of a dark edge. And remember, we're still a little confused. What universe are we in? Are we in the slightly darker universe, or are we in the less? So just a throwback to the last show. Because it's got weird tweakiness of the characters feeling just a little off, and maybe they're doing that on purpose.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a bit of a conundrum that's kind of happening in terms of characterization. And Catherine from the Freelancers reveals quite a bit of it through these episodes of how things are kind of... She keeps asking Kira things like, how do you feel things are going? Because I think what happens is as you have these time fissures or these time problems that happen, that reality becomes shifty, and trying to decide what's real and what isn't, I think, becomes a bit of a problem, especially in characterization. Like, we're going to get into Alec. I mean, boy, these 2 Alecs are being completely different people, and they've swapped roles completely as well. It's getting bananas in that sense. So, yeah, I think he is a bit darker, but to me, Carlos is now becoming the through line for truth, for the actual reality. I think he, and I'll give a Lost reference, I think he's becoming the constant in everything else. Everybody else is either looking to the future or looking to the past. Everybody has all these goals, all these, missions, secrets. Carlos is the only one who is Carlos. He has no real secret alliances in terms except for helping his friend try and get back home, and I think he's now questioning what that is too.
Yeah, or they're just setting you up.
Or they're just setting us up to go postal at some point, and it's going to get even more bananas. Which, hey, I could take it too.
Okay, so what was your best scene then?
I had a choice between 2. So one is just for the references, so I won't go to it, and that's when the 2 Alecs meet at the end. The amount of references in just that short scene are ridiculous and funny, so we can talk about that a little later. But really, it's the second flash future scene where there's a coda on the show where it shows Kira in the future. We're not sure. They don't put a time date again, so we're not sure really where it is. And there's a fire. She goes in to save people. There's these 2 girls. She can only save one at a time. And when she goes back down, this is the second scene, and the guy is mad that she went up and saved this other girl instead of saving these the lives of all these people who worked in the company and had value versus the little girl. Yep. So their deaths get put on her life debt. And he says, whatever they were going to make over the next whatever umpteen years is now part of your life debt, Kira. And there's this secret, quiet moment where they all line up, to all the police, and they do this little kind of hand-holding as she goes behind them to say that they got her back and that what she did was the right thing. And it's this secret, quiet moment that is so powerful. And it really shows some kind of change in the timeline because it's very different kind of characterization for Kira. She's not just following orders. She's doing things differently, and everybody is behind her. So it seems like the future has changed somewhat. Very, very powerful scene. I really like it. Really kind of hit me.
Well, I do remember seeing that scene. I did like it a lot. It kind of played into what was happening last week with her when she was younger, deciding to become a military person, and was that a different reality? So yeah, I liked it. But it wasn't my favorite scene. My favorite scene was when Carlos is talking to Kira's dead body. He's in the cold room, he unzips her, and it's like his little dolly, and he talks with her, and it's like, dude, that's so dark. That is really, okay, this is the dark Carlos.
And the line is, I'm not sure why I trust you more than I trust her.
Exactly.
And that's really, that's pretty disturbing.
So
I have a question out of that, by the way. Is there not 3 suits now in this timeline? Dead has a suit on or still on. Alec buried the other cop's suit as soon as he jumped back in time, so Travis wouldn't get it, and Kira has her suit now. What happened to dead Kira's suit?
Wasn't that suit taken off? I don't know if she had it on.
But yeah, that's the thing. It depends if she was wearing it or not.
Well, she's always wearing it, isn't she? She's always wearing it.
Well, no, there was a scene where they're talking about her new suit, and she's switching out suits. That comes.
No, but that's the Kara that traveled back in time. I'm talking about K2, the one that is dead and in the fridge. She would have had her suit. There should be a 3rd suit somewhere.
She might, or it was not on because he was fixing it in his lab.
No, that's
exactly. It depends on what time they went back to.
No, the one that. So when Alec first came back, see, I don't want to spend too much time on this. We'll get back to this, but
we'll just have to.
When Alex came back, they had the suit that was from her partner, who came back, whatever, 30 years, 60 years prior, or whatever it was, and that's the one that Travis ended up getting in season 2. Well, he never gets it because we go back in time a week, and then Alec gets rid of that suit. He hides it. Just like he hides part of the time travel device. So, but Kira too had a suit. I just want to know where it is. Somebody throw me an email.
No, yeah, exactly. I think you might be right. Good catch. Yeah. 3 suits. That could be fun.
It must be Hel being the prop master on that show.
It's
like, what?
What? I totally forgot about that other suit.
Okay, so let's move quickly and painfully forward to the best character development. I'll give that to Jay Dean.
Oh, wait, you just want... Okay.
What?
Never mind.
Go ahead.
I'm forgetting. Never mind. We're okay. We're online. It's all good.
Okay. To me, it's absolutely Carlos, and it's this whole 3 block is really Carlos is really an amazing guy. I'm starting to love him. I really thought he was annoying in the first season, but he's the only guy who doesn't have an agenda and isn't trying to manipulate somebody into something or other. To me, he is the guy now. And he stands up to Kira now, which I'm loving. And later, in I think it's episode 6, he's just taking comical pot shots at her. It's really fantastic.
Well, that's because he's got the dead one in the freezer, right? He's got the dead Kira in the freezer, and that's the one he likes. This new one he doesn't like so much, so she's going to give her a hard time.
Yeah, well, you got Betty, who's double teaming with Liberate. You've got Dylan, who's part of the whole corporate agenda and is taking the police service private. You've got Kira, who is now a twin, and one is dead, the one he knew. There's 2 Alex. He's the only guy who's a regular, normal person living in the present. Everybody else is bizarre. Him and Julian, and that relationship is developing, and that's really cool.
Well, I'm going to jump in and say the same thing because I've got that as Carlos as the character that's developed the most in this show number 4, and surprisingly, quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's like he's forefront. It's like, okay, now it's your turn, and that's what's interesting about the series. They'll like take 1 or 2 episodes and say this is all about this guy's backstory, all about developing his character, all about showing a different side of that person. So when they go back into the background, it enriches the whole tapestry of the show.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice that it enriches? Oh, that's good. I gotta write that one down. God,
I love it.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, what about you? Who is your favorite character?
My favorite character development is the development of Julian to Theseus.
Yeah.
Because, in my opinion, there was that one scene in this particular episode where he's talking to the reporter, and it's like, are you upset about what has happened with this entire conspiracy riot killing thing, and he's like, why aren't you upset, you know?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the Theseus character is coming out, and if you think about what he was like in season 1 and season 2, he was a misdirected kid, and now he's really taking on that leadership role, and not leadership because someone says you are the leader, which was all of season 2, but leadership because he's taking a side in his own mind as to what's right and what's wrong and where we should be leading people. So I think that the Julian/Theseus is the most character development.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't think of it that way. Awesome.
And you know what's also, I'm a little angry with him because I'm not sure why he's trying to really go after Kira and Carlos. I mean, he shot Carlos, and Carlos kind of let it go, and now Carlos kind of believes that he can be a good guy. He's the only other person in the present, and Carlos sees it like, if I can save this kid and prevent him from going bad, maybe that's the only thing he can, like, focus on, because everybody else has got some crazy 20 years, 30 years, 70 years in the future bananas thing going on. So he's trying to help this kid who is becoming the leader of a movement. I'm so fascinated with the fact that Liberate is happening at this point moving forward, while you have Liberate moving backward and trying to undo these things. You know, these 3 episodes are really great in terms of the future Liberate and what they're trying to undo or change versus the current Liberate and what they're trying to prevent and try to stand up for. It's they contrast it really well.
Well, I think you're getting that a lot. That gets echoed also with a lot of the characters, where there's one character that's trying to undo stuff, and there's another character that's doing stuff, and it's the frustration between the person that says, "Look, I'm doing this. I can't tell you why, but please believe in me," and they don't, and you go like, "God." So it's happening on multiple levels, which is really clever.
Yeah.
I don't have a best line for this one, so I'm going to get it all over to JD. What's your best line?
Okay, so I've got a few in there.
I knew you would.
So best line, there's Diane and Julian, and he's on the show, and they're talking, and he accuses Kira and Carlos of, sorry, is it Cantor, the police officer, of ordering him to kill or to draw a gun, and Diane says, "Murderer is a strong word," and he says, "Yeah, so's hero."
Yeah,
and it's just brilliantly paced and brilliantly done. I really reinforce what you're saying, Steph. He's becoming this very strong, direct character, and I really hope that he, we are going to see when we get to the next episode that there's some interesting things that I'm sure are going to happen there. Also, there's this repeating line that Duncan says about the girl that's killed. He's the young guy who puts on the kind of thing on the university grounds, and it's now that she's dead, she only gets to be one thing, which is terrorist. And later that line is repeated by Kira, and talking about Betty when Betty is discovered. Now she only gets to be one thing. And I love that idea of that, is that sometimes we put these labels on things, and that's all you'll ever be remembered. It didn't matter that this girl was getting a master's degree at the university. It doesn't matter that Betty is not only intelligent IT, is a police officer, has been working with them, like she's really like an important person that's integral to both teams if you look at it, but now she'll only ever be like a turncoat, right? And I love the idea of that you think you know somebody, and once we start getting into these dual characters, you don't know anybody. You really don't in a lot of ways, and you can't just be, writing them off because of one circumstance.
Yeah, you get a lot of that and that's a really good quality mark for shows, where you have a show and you hate a character in season 1, and then you say, you don't mind him in season 2, and then season 3, wow, this guy's a really nice guy, and it's actually the writing has made you completely change your opinion, and that is such a strong statement about society, that with the society we live in, there are no black and white evil people. Yeah. There are just variances of gray, and that's the difference between reality and what you see on TV.
Exactly, and I'm going to reinforce that. So we've got terrorists, we've got time travelers, we've got cops, And if we were in CSI, if we were in Jack Bauer's 24, it'd be very, very clear who the bad guys are and who to trust and who you don't trust and who you kill and who is good collateral damage. We don't have that here. It is really hard to choose any kind of side in this story, and that's what's really great about it, because I have empathy and excitement for each episode.
Well, it's like you're having multiple... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steffi.
I was gonna tie into that because it was something, again, it's a slight ajar from the questions themselves, but it so ties into what you just said. I was thinking about it. And, you know, if you want to follow season 1, 2, and 3, the characters themselves, like their moral values and the way that they make their decisions in life have not changed at all. But the perspective of the audience has flip-flopped back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
And they've done it without actually changing the characters that we're watching. That is such high-level writing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for line-wise, of course, Kellogg's in this episode. Anytime Kellogg's in an episode, the dorkable boy genius thing, he referenced, did you play the Steve Jobs role? You don't even own a turtleneck.
Yeah.
He made so many different references in there. I looked at this this board. They don't. There's no Kirk. There's no Picard. They don't even have a Geordi. Anytime that guy's in the room, you got lines. That guy's.
Yeah, well, he's a sci-fi nerd. You know,
and
not getting his lines.
One of the best time travel references is when Alec meets Alec, and Alec. Alec and Scar Alec, who's our future guy, Alec touches the other Alec immediately and says, "Suck it, nerds. I knew it would be fine." Like, it's awesome. Just the idea of two things occupying the same space. In one moment, they destroy the idea of pre-existing written material on time travel, and in that moment, peek behind the curtain and say, "Suck it." Like that, you guys even considered it for a second. Fantastic writing, like really ingenious writing.
Well, it's like knowing your audience, and I think it goes back to our preamble, which is like they're playing with the audience, they're listening to their audience, they know they have probably a super nerd following. I don't know where they get that idea, because we're not, and they're playing off the stereotypes. I mean, it's very, very, very clever. Now we have to move swiftly along here, because we're half an hour in and we're not even 3/4 of the way through part one. Worst and most confusing. Yeah.
We got confusing scene too.
Oh, sorry. Long way to go, dude.
Wow. Pardon me.
Worst and most confusing scene. And we'll. I'll start. I'll do it first.
Go.
So the most confusing scene with me is when he first pitched the board. I mean, he goes in and I understand later on why he did that, but when I watch, he does this wimpy scene and he basically gets trampled and is dejected and say, "Wow, that's like so out of character and that's weird. What are they doing?" But that I got it right later on why, but it was still very confusing until I saw that second scene where he basically starts to connive and become a nasty business person. And that's all part of his character becoming darker, and then later on in show 4, 5, and 6, it goes darker still. So that for me was quite confusing.
Yeah.
Steffi?
Oh, okay. So for me... for me, this whole show was the Theseus Julian thing. So I was extremely confused when, and you tied into this earlier, why is it that Julian is calling Carlos out as the villain in this to the press and everything? Because remember that only at the end of the last season, it was Carlos that was saving his butt from getting killed by Kira. Yeah. So why has he switched? There's no political reason to do it. I don't get it. So that, for me, was the most confusing scene.
Yeah, I had that here as well. And besides that, I had one other confusing. I really don't get why he's trying to destroy Carlos. He seems like the only guy that's on his side, and he shot him. So, like, chill out there, Julian. Chill out. The thing is the gun. I had a trouble tracking this gun through the episode. So the gun disappears from the security guard. Then the cop shoots some people and claims that there's a couple of gunshots. We know it's firecrackers and some other stuff or whatever, gas canisters, whatever they are. Then the gun is taken by Duncan. Duncan gives it to the professor. The professor dumps it in the garbage can, calls the police, and says, "Here's where it is." The police get it, put it in the baggie, and then go plant it in the guy's room. Who fired the 2 shots off the gun? Because when Kira looks at the gun, it says 2 shots were fired off. So the cops pulled it out of the garbage can, went around the corner, fired off 2 shots.
During the riot, there were 2 shots fired, and that's what started.
There was not.
Yeah, there was 2 shots of the fire.
No, the police officer killed 3 people, but nobody in the crowd shot a gun. It's a complete plant. It's a complete put-up job. So the problem I had is Kira says that there's, and we all know that the cops planted it by the end of the show, that it was a setup. So who fired the gun? So they just kind of bungled that a bit. It was a little weird. I had to watch it twice, almost a third time, just to figure out what the heck was going on with that crazy gun and what it actually meant to the plot. It's kind of a bit of a throwaway because there's a bigger plot going on. But
unless those 2 shots turn up later on.
I guess that's entirely possible.
That's magic bullets. Next
2 bullets
season.
just show up through a time travel portal. Okay, yeah. I put no credence in that.
I think if the police characters were trying to do the cover-up, like the police characters are trying to cover up what happened, they can't present the gun if it doesn't have, if the bullets are all in it. So I'm sure before they threw it in the garbage can, they must have pulled off 2 shots on it. I mean, that's my guess. We don't get to see it.
I'm just saying there was an actual mistake made because in the photographs that the professor shows, they show the cops take the photos. It was a series of photos show him taking the gun out and putting it right into the baggie, the evidence baggie.
Yep.
So that to me is a little weird. Maybe but whatever.
It could have been a scene that ended up on the cutting room floor, and that's just.
I think that it's possible, but yeah, you're right. I know they did it, but that was a bit confusing. Was the gun?
No, that's awesome. That's that sounds like an internet meme if I've ever heard one. Okay, so Stephanie, did we talk about your confusing scene? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did. So it's just rating.
Right. Okay, so let's start with the rating. Stephanie, what's the rating? Out of 5.
4.1.
4.1.
4.1.
I second that. 4.1.
Wow, and
solid episode.
Okay, I gave it a 4. 4.0. Nice. Yeah. And that's because of my scoring that happens later on. That's the reason I did it that way. So let's move over to show number 5, and we'll start with Jay Dean and talk about the best scene.
30 minutes to air. I had quite a few best scenes in this. I think this episode was really phenomenal. I know. I will say one of my favorites is when Kira calls the wrong Alec, and it's revealed to present-day Alec that she knew all along that there's another Alec, and it was quite an uncomfortable conversation. And I really thought that was an amazing scene between the 2 actors and the 2 characters. It was wonderful. And in this episode, there was so much of that where one person is playing. There's another Kellogg Alex scene where it's the same kind of thing, where they're just playing with each other about who knew about who when. So that was one of my favorites. Very strong, powerful, and she's playing this game, keeping the cards close to her, but she is losing control of these 2 very different Alex.
Cool. All right, Stephanie, you're up.
Okay, so best scene for me. This is the whole thing that happened at the television station when there's this whole takeover and hostage situation going on, and there's a standoff between the inspector. Help me with his first name.
Dylan. It's Jack Dylan, but Dylan's his last name, yeah.
Okay, so Jack Dylan and Travis from Liber 8, they have a one-to-one standoff where they're both having a bit of a power thing going on, where you're not exactly sure which one is going to cause the chaos and who's going to be responsible. Is it Liber 8 that's going to kill the hostage, or the fact that Dylan is basically being a little bit, you're not going to push me around. We don't really know what the play is going to happen, but you can tell if there is a side of Liberate and if there is a side for the policing or corporate force, we know who our leaders are or who they're emerging to be.
Yeah.
And you also get to see them you also get to see Dylan in the sitting on the board as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's it's like, oh, what's that about? Because I remember season 1 or I think season 2 when he came in, he came out on a political angle. So he's playing a lot of political games. So he's kind of that level, but he's getting his hands dirty now, which is very very interesting.
Yeah, he's got an agenda, and it's not. He's got some deep roots in these 3 episodes. He's got this agenda going on that's really deep, and I'm not really sure what his end game is. And I have a lot of questions about that, especially when he does something that I think is bananas in the next episode.
Okay, I'll say when Alex is talking to Matthew about a no deal, he basically shuts him down, and I thought that was awesome. It was like a real. He's manning up. He's becoming okay. Now it's almost like the terrorist guy. What's his name? We talk.
Travis.
Travis, when he stepped up to the plate, right? And this is kind of Alex. So everybody's matured. They've gone up one notch of maturity.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about Julian, but yeah.
Yeah, Julian, right? And they've kind of brought them both up at the same time. It's quite interesting.
Yeah,
they're diverging.
He's got an amazing amount of confidence in that scene, and Kellogg is thrown off. Now, Kellogg's only been thrown off a couple of times. One when Travis almost killed him, another when Kira almost killed him, but then had sex with him. And then another one, and now this one, and he's totally blown away. It's an amazingly powerful scene. I think Alec needs to be very careful, because the last time that Kellogg felt lost, Escher died. So everybody needs to be very careful when they play Kellogg. That guy flip-flops more than anybody I know. He wants to own the world. He wants to run a company. He wants to go back to the future. I want to own the company and control the world in the future. Now I want to go back again with Kira. That guy is all over the place.
Dead bodies along the way. It's like I would say that was one of the more shocking scenes last show. Not from this group, where he basically assassinates that guy, and there's no build-up, boom, he's just gone. He gets shot in the head, and he's dead. And he said, "Wow."
So he's a dark guy. The end of this scene, he does such a good job because he's absolutely blown away. So he's basically Alec has sided with Dylan, and Dylan is his new partner of strength. And but there's this great line in that scene where he says, I'm sure I'm not unique. But at that point, Kellogg doesn't know that Alec knows about the other Alec. And then there's another scene that's 2 scenes after this where Kellogg is drinking whiskey with the other Alec, and again he gets, it's just like it's all shit. It's all shit, kid. Like everything's terrible. Kellogg gets his ass handed to him in this episode, and I appreciate it.
Let's talk about best character. I'm going to jump in and do this one because I know everybody's going to say the same thing. Or I'm curious. Inspector Dylan, I think, is the biggest character development for this show. It's borderline, but I really think he got to do some amazing stuff, especially what happens later in the show, and it's part of my worst and most confusing scenes. So yeah, he's really. It's kind of like. The show number 4, Carlos got to step and be the main character, and in this one, show 5, Inspector Dylan is getting to show his plumage, I guess would be a better term. But for me, that really stuck out like a sore thumb for me.
Yeah, he's a suspicious character indeed. I agree that he is the one, and it looks like he's got a love interest coming up too. So that's bonus points for that guy.
Gotta throw one of those in every now and again.
I don't know. She's kind of slimy. I don't know if that's gonna go anywhere. She's kind of edgy.
Slimy. Yeah.
Okay, Steffi.
Yeah.
What do you got for same guy?
Best character development. I mean. Yeah, I kind of sort of have to go to it, but I'm going to cite the fact that this episode is where there's the complete and total flip-flop. You've already kind of decided exactly what side you're on with him, if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and then in the very, very end he's having that conversation with his daughter, and you find out that he's bringing his daughter into this entire thing. Like, I love my daughter, but I have to, stay on the side of the law is his public image.
Yeah, that's in the
and
next
then I love my daughter, but I'm going to throw her to liberate. I mean...
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean,
I don't
that
know.
was a pretty shocking scene.
He's a dark guy, and he's always been, like, I understand, like, at first he was, in the first season he was all about, police officer, this, and this. And then you're right, Bob, he was, like, very political in the second season. It was all about the politics, and then he goes over and, the sellout to the corporation. Now he's like a train selling out to the corporation as much as possible. He's partnered with Pyron and Alec, and he's willing to get rid of everything. Like, he wants to be part of that, the military, civic control of the future. He's willing to play that guy, the guy who's going to sell it out to the corpse. He's definitely dark. But honestly, I think this episode, the best character development is Travis. Travis is becoming Kagami. He's becoming a peaceful Liberate. The vision that Kagami had from the beginning of influencing their minds, he's going away from the military side of who he was, and they want to make a difference. Him and Sonya now have changed their roles, and he is siding with Sonya, and they see a vision for taking the power away from the corporate Congress. That is their real goal, and that's what they're going to go after. And of course, there is the coda in this one, the Flash future, where it's him and his wife and his daughter, and he sacrifices himself so they can be protected. I'm hoping we're going to see something to do with his daughter, because it's really interesting that they specifically mention about her DNA being masked, and that they don't want them to know that that's his daughter. So it was really a powerful scene, that he was willing to sacrifice himself, and that's what this whole episode is about some sacrifices. And I really I think that's what's happening in this whole block of episodes we're watching, is a lot of sacrifice. But I think he's really becoming an amazingly interesting character, not just a soldier anymore, not just brute force. He's becoming the Kagami that's been missing.
Interesting. Let's jump over to worst and most confusing scene. So there's a choice there, Stephanie. What are you going to pull out of the hat?
I'm going to throw my hands down on the table and say, what about that suit? Because here's where I am. I'm coming back to the same thing I had a problem with in the first three. We have this unbelievable, incredible suit from the future that Kira gets to wear anytime she needs to take over or help out or do something that you don't get to see in 2012 or 2014 or 2017, right? And what happens? She has her opportunity in the scene, and it goes invisible. We already knew that. I want more. So there you go. The first scene to me is, I'm disappointed with the suit.
Use the damn suit.
Well, isn't it upgraded? There's a hint of it being upgraded. I don't know if it was this one or the next one, but it is.
I know, but what upgrade have you seen?
Well, it's like Windows.
Better?
It's like
Visible
Vista.
2.0?
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is Vista. Shit, I want the old stuff. Yeah. That is funny.
My most confusing is the end scene with Dylan's daughter, Chrissy, and him just throwing her to the frickin' wolves. And, like, does she have training? Is she a cop? Is she, like, who is she?
She's a cop.
Like, is she a ninja? Am I missing something? But she says an interesting line that I think is fantastic. She said, he said, if you want to back out, you still can. And she said, no, Dad, the course is set. Which is a really unique phrase to use. It makes me wonder that maybe, and I've been wondering this about Dylan, maybe he knew Asher deeper than we thought, and maybe he's aware of the time travel technology. It's quite possible that he knows who Kira is.
Well, I picked the same scene. I found it very confusing because it was a flip. I mean, it was just a.
Yeah.
It just happened at the end. It's like what? And it was a brilliant, confusing scene because it works. It wasn't there for no reason. And yeah, her comment about staying the course, and I think what that is he's got a big plan that he's basically confided with her, and stuff's going to happen based on that. Now remember, there was a piece of technology that we've forgotten about when they had a big scramble, and it was a round cylindery thing.
Yeah, it hasn't popped up yet.
Who's got that? So maybe Dylan has it.
No, the freelancers have it. Kira handed it over to the freelancers, and they were going to take a look at it. Yes, yeah. Because there's a big scene where they put it down on the thing, and
still confusing.
They have it.
All right.
And they couldn't identify the technology, by the way, or they were lying to Kira, which of course could always be the truth.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So
best line.
Best line. I want to do live to lie another day. I think
that was a good one.
That's a very Clint Eastwood one. That's a very 1970s tough cop line, and I really liked it. So live to lie another day. I think it's somebody talking to Alex. I can't remember the scene. Sorry, because it's been so long. But it was a brilliant line. It worked so well. God damn, I can't remember who it was. I think it was an Alex.
That's okay. It's a great line.
Live to lie to. What was it? Yeah, doesn't matter. So okay, Steffi, what do you got?
Yep.
Okay, so going back to the Kellogg and Alex scene that happens in that one.
Which one?
When there's that, goodbye, Kellogg. You go and you do your thing now.
Yeah.
The fact that Alex says in that conversation, I'm evolving. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he sure is.
Yeah.
I'm evolving. He's really evolving.
Yeah, and I think what did he reacts to that too. He says he's evolving and he reacts to it. It's really interesting. I love it. I love now Kellogg has to do with two Alex. I just love the idea of that. And one doesn't care, and the other one isn't under his thumb anymore. So he has no Alex to control.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my baby is gone. Damn it.
Yeah. One of mine is when Alec is trying to get money out of the bank machine, and it's when did I become such a dick? I just loved it. It was like, oh, that's awesome. And all of the self-referential stuff is becoming really hilarious. The other one is a big kind of rant or speech from Travis when he's talking to Diane, the reporter, and he says, no more talking heads. When I watch your show, I'm ashamed for you and all your viewers. No awareness, no analysis, just reactionary opinions. You are part of the problem. A pretty empty puppet leading everyone on a merry dance.
Now, who is he talking about there?
He's talking about the media in general, but it's...
Well, I think he's talking about CNN in general.
Because I think
that is so CNN. It was like when I remember watching that, and say, "Oh yeah, that's a nice swipe at CNN."
Yeah, yeah, it's really fantastic, and he really intimidates her there, and I really like that Liberate succeeded in so many levels because I'm seeing their organization change, and I'm seeing how close they are getting to what Julian is becoming. They're going to eventually meet in the middle here. And it's going to get interesting. So, I mean, who leads it at that point? Is it Travis who's going to be the leader, or is it going to be Julian? Because they're both stuck in this timeline. There's no intent for Sonia or Travis to move forward in time. They're trying to change the future here now. And the next episode is way more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steffi?
Ratings.
What do you want? You want to start with the ratings?
3.8 for me.
3.8? Ooh, she lashes it down to 3.8. All right.
And I'll tell you why.
Tell us why.
I didn't find my heart racing and the excitement level kind of hitting me in this one. I think it's maybe because it was just the long hostage situation for me felt like something I'd seen before. So that's why it dropped.
Okay, cool. J.D.?
I went higher than the last episode. I went 4.2 on this one because for me, you have the two confrontation scenes with Kellogg and Alec. You have Carlos becoming the leader and literally telling Kira what to do. We've never seen this ever. he takes control. He becomes the new Dylan because Dylan is selling himself out and he's also trapped inside. I love the line that in a hostage situation there are no VIPs. And we know that that's probably not a realistic thing in the real world. There are always VIPs. So I love his heart. I love what he's done in terms of his character builds even further. I love what's happening with Travis in this one. I love the story of him making sacrifices back in the future. I also like all the Dylan's machinations, Julian, like everything is reaching a boil point into episode 6. So for me, the momentum was kept up, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, I gave it a weak 4.1. Not a solid 4.1. The only reason I got a 0.1 was because of that amazing twist at the end with the daughter of the inspector.
Yeah.
That would say, oh, okay, 4.1. But I was thinking 4 all the way up until that point, and well deserved. So let's move swiftly on to best scene. Let's start with
episode 6.
Yeah. What's the title of that one?
Wasted Minute.
Wasted Minute. Oh.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what do you got for best scene?
I don't know. Is everyone else going to say it's the same scene? But
I hope so.
My heart was beating so hard when it was Alex versus Alex. I mean, I loved the fight scene, and they're like hitting each other, and they're like, you know, there's this play on this word play that's going back and forth, and we're all looking at this and thinking, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then I loved that moment when Alex, I don't even know if we want to call him 2 or we want to call him 1, but he hits the other Alex, and now what do we have, by the way? Scar on the
Scar.
Yeah. That's coming into play. Like, that's coming up.
Yeah. I love that.
Beautiful. I had so much fun.
Well, that was my scene too, and J.D., was that your scene?
No, mine really is the ending. The crazy shoe drop ending where we find out who is Kira's killer, and that whole line of discovers that Curtis, he killed me. I mean, to say that line is bananas. And who the hell is this Curtis guy? Who does he work for? He's bananas. What is this guy? So he came from the future with Liberate, left them, joined the Freelancers, and then, died.
Yeah.
Brought back to life, joined the Freelancers, tries to partner with Kira on the side, kills the other Kira. Like, this guy is like Wild West. It's like he doesn't care what he's doing. He's like this anomaly that's bananas.
Well, I think that's interesting. He's one of the only characters that's never really been developed in his own scene, so that might be coming up in shows where he gets a chance to develop a little bit. So yeah, I'm very curious about that too.
Besides that last scene to me was really one of the most powerful. The other is Betty and her fighting back and saying that she's not with Liberate and she's not.
But she gets slapped down pretty hard too. It's like, yeah, killy attitude, bitch, right?
I think it's interesting, but she stood up for herself and she's doing her job. She cares. She really, really cares. She's not just a shill. And I think that's important in terms of these levels of gray that we were talking about earlier. Here's somebody who's now caught in a position, and the only reason she was helping Liberate in a lot of ways is because she believes in their message. She believes in that message, not the message of killing people, which is future Liberate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I got a point back then.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, I got 2 points that came about that conversation, but going back to the Betty thing, I totally agree. I mean, we as audience members are starting to understand where Liberate is coming from, and Betty has already been there. We're starting to get. She's just a human being again. We can't paint her picture right now. And I like that. I do like that. So I love that you grabbed that scene. That's a good scene.
Yeah. And also.
And what else was I saying?
Oh, number 2?
Sorry, the number 2 thing is I was just going to tie in and jump ahead to my favorite line because it actually was part of the scene that we were talking about.
Oh, cool.
And that's the Curtis Are you a freelancing freelancer? Something that was said. Perfect description. Anyway, that's what I would have said for the line part.
Yeah, me too. Cool. And what's his response? I've never thought you were funny. I love that. You know, I love that, especially because she killed him once, or he killed himself on her gun once because he tried to shoot her with it. But yeah, I was going to say, back to the Betty thing, I think that relationship between Kira and Betty is really important, because Kira represents the corporate programming and Betty represents the liberate programming. Yet they both are involved in police, and they're both involved in you know, trying to solve the problems that are happening right now in today. And they each have this programming, and I think they both stepped out of that scene for the moment and said, and Betty stood up for herself, and Kira said, yes, stand up for yourself, but chill out, because you're kind of fucked here. Don't mess with that. But I think that was out of respect. I don't think that was a total slapdown. I think that was a be careful, choose your battles. But you know, I think it was well executed in that way. It could have been.
Well, her response was pretty interesting though, because she says, you know, back, and she's like, "Give me a break. Look what I'm trying to do here." So it's definitely, it was a sympathy move, and to get the audience on her side again, and to make her a little bit of a hero. So I'm very curious to see if she digs her way out of the hole. But they've definitely making it hard for her to get out of there, and I think they're doing that on purpose. So she'll be more liked when she finally comes out.
Well, and also to go back to the end of season 2, which ended up not happening. At the end of that season, Carlos and her go see Julian on the farm. Well, that never happened now. So the ideologies of Carlos and Betty are quite close. So I think you're right. I think this is a setup for things to come between the two of them. Because right now she's in the doghouse, but her and Carlos have some of the same ideology.
And I think Carlos is going to have a chance to be in the doghouse, because we're talking about the dead body. He's going to get caught with that dead body. No way he's not going to, right?
Yes.
And it'll be like this really. It'll be a funny season. It'll be a really funny scene, or it'll be a real tragic scene. One of the two, and that's maybe when she'll come up to the fray.
Yeah.
Yeah, his dead body girlfriend.
Bob, what was your favorite scene? Did we?
Yeah,
we should go there.
Basically, the part of the favorite scene that everybody loved was when he smashed the Alex with the keyboard, because I've seen that exact same scene before in the one where the guy's trained to be an assassin. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah, Wanted.
And there's just this most amazing shot where he just smashes it, and they do this beautiful, all the pieces and the keys you can see, and then there's a tooth there, and it's brilliant. And I was just thinking, they didn't do a very good job in the keyboard smacking into his head, but I thought it was very, very interesting that he did get smacked in exactly the same spot, and I definitely think that's going to be a telling thing in the future. So let's move on to best character development. I'll jump in and say Carlos, because he was her killer, basically, is what I put down there. Which
sorry, Carlos or Curtis?
Curtis. Sorry, Curtis. Because it was her killer. That makes more sense. Sorry, my notes. It's been a week and about 400 shows later, because we went saying it was like my brain's mush. But because he was her killer, and for sure, that was really a mind bender. I mean, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So very, very similar to what Stephanie said. So, JD, do you have somebody different, or did you?
I have two. I think in terms of this episode, the best single episode arc is Emily. Emily has 3 small scenes in this, and they are so powerful. 4 small scenes. The confrontation of Scar Alec in what is he going to do, and don't make a deal with Kellogg. It's like making a deal with the devil, and the whole devil you know and the devil you don't know. And she has a great line like, if you make a handshake deal with Matthew Kellogg, better make sure you have all your fingers afterwards.
Yeah, that's a classic.
So a really powerful scene that's when she asks him to get the file. Because we all know she killed Escher, and Alec doesn't know yet. So there's this explosion that's going to happen there at some point. And then the confrontation with Alex Prime, or original Alex, I don't know what else to call him, Alec, and where she does some ass kicking, and I loved that scene and that confrontation and him and all the visuals used about being on a leash and being controlled. And one of my favorite lines comes out of there, and we'll get to it, but it's a really, really powerful scene and a confrontation, and it really proves the idea later that the problem here is both Alex are in love with her. And so she's really the key in terms of the thread through this. And then at the end, when she decides to move on, so we think, or we're not sure, at the bus station or at the station there, and it's so sad. It's so sad that the idea of her losing out on that love, I mean, I think it was bound to happen. If it's not death, it's some other kind of death. And I think that's part of the transformative stuff that happens in this series. Is great, you didn't die, you're not going to win. So it was really powerful. I think through this episode, for 4 small scenes, very powerful through line for her.
Yep, absolutely. No, I'd have to agree. I have to listen to that. I did love the scene where she basically kicked the shit out of the guy. And I love the point about them both being in love, but they're in love in a totally different way, and I think that's really interesting.
Really interesting. Yeah, one just wants to like own her.
Think of what they do stereotypically. The guys both fall madly in love with the woman, and it's exactly the same type of love. How boring is that? Yeah. And then and that's the comedy, or that's the drama. And it's like, guys, that's lazy writing. And this show is taking it to a whole new level and saying, look, here's exactly the same guy, and he loves her in a totally different way. Wow, that's crazy.
You know, there's so many layers in this series, and you know, we're not even getting into pieces of it, because the big theme in this whole episode is about this chemical biological weapon thing. Yeah. And you know, we have a flash forward at the beginning and a resolution for what that is, and a big like emotional drop for Kira to realize that the corporations who she believed in, and you know they had to say a pledge allegiance to, and she worked for, that these are the ones who not only created the cure but created the disease in the first place, and that's the point of the whole story. But we're talking about all these other parts that are just amazing that are going on within that larger story, and I'm amazed at how many levels, and what Steph was saying before, or maybe this was preamble, where you talked about threads from season 1 and season 2, and these threads that are getting all connected, and you're like, oh wow, this is amazing. And that's why I can never vote any of these episodes under a 4, because I'm getting satisfied in some way, no matter what story they're telling.
Yeah, I have to agree.
To tie into what you said, it's so funny. You always like set me up for one of the things I want to talk about. Nadine, you're always doing that. But even what you're saying about the threads and such, it's even in this episode when Carlos tells Kira, don't kill him, basically, is kind of the thing. And in this case, I believe she was talking about, she's going to go... Kira walks off, and God, who was she going after at the time? I can't even remember.
It's the lawyer that represents the, right? When she tries to strangle that guy?
Well, I just remember... No, she didn't even do anything, because, like, she walks away from Carlos. It's around the end of the episode, if I remember correctly, and I think she's going to go and talk to, Julian or something along those lines. But anyway, it's very obvious that Carlos's warning, don't kill anybody, is I think the line that gets said, and she's talking about, be good. Julian's in that mix there. You need to, remembering what had happened a season before, right, where she tried to kill him. So no killing anybody here. I mean, you gotta keep it safe.
Yeah.
Just interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, she's an interesting character. It's funny because she's almost the least looked at character in this whole 3rd season. They seem to be bringing out all these sub-characters, and we're seeing the juxtaposition of what Catherine had said, that some people are significant and some people aren't, and that some people can disappear. But the more I look at it, it seems like what like I was thinking about Dylan. If I was going to go back in time, I'd almost rub that guy out. That guy's got a lot of influence and power, and he seems to be pushing something in a direction that's getting pretty scary. I mean, geez, that guy's terrible. Or, you know, go back and get Escher. Like, it's amazing how everybody seems so significant. The background has moved forward in this, and it seems to be less about Kira this season and more about everything that she's affecting or has affected.
Let's talk about best line.
Best line.
This is hard.
All right, one, JD, one. I'm going to make you torture you. One out of the 53 you've got there. And while he's deciding, we'll get Stephanie to start.
I've got 5 best lines.
Well, you get one. So Stephanie, while he's deciding.
No, I already did. It's the "Are you a freelancer?" which I thought was like.
Okay.
So I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
All right. Tell you what
I love that one.
JD, if we're able to get to the bottom of this list, we'll let you have one more line. How's that? My one is not to get all Rod Sterling over here. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And that's one of those throwback lines that's happening with old sci-fi and whatever, and I thought that was great.
Yeah. Mine is from the same scene, but they're on just different positions. It's Alex says to Emily when they meet on the street, "How is life with the romantic time traveling me? Enjoying your stay at the honeymoon suite at the Bedbug Motel?" And then after she does some ass kicking, and he talks about putting on a leash. She says, "Cut us loose, or next time I cut you. Leashes break, Alec." And it's just the perfect end-to-end. He tries to get one up on her. She kicks the security guard's ass, knocks his leg out, and literally threatens his life and gets out of there. It's the perfect pairing in that scene, that coming in and coming out of it. It's a really well-done scene.
Yeah, awesome scene, for sure.
Yeah.
Steffi, worst or most confusing scene for you?
Okay, so I am still really confused, and maybe it's because it's alluding to something's going to happen later. Not real sure. But anytime we go back into the world of the freelancers and that lovely little bunker that they've got going on,
yeah.
I don't really quite get if it's real or not real, or if there's a portal that you walk through the door and then people are in these different realms and rooms. I don't quite get it, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that I really didn't get about this one is that in the very beginning of the episode, they look at the door.
Yes.
So there's something in the door, and I don't know what the door is. Is it another... What is it? Is it like, is there another Kira that they're holding on to? Is it a portal to another universe? Is it, what is it? I don't know what it is, and they're not helping me here. Yeah, so confusing. I get it. We don't know supposed to know yet, but
yeah. Yeah, well, they throw away a few little pieces in it. One, this is the third time they teased it. They teased the door, like on episode 3, I think. They teased the door in episode 5, and Kira's in front of it. And there was a really emotional line that she says to Kira in episode 5, where it was really mysterious. Where it was, it had something to do with, "I'm really glad you're here, Kira," where she's trying to be the mother to her and be really guiding, but it was right in front of that room, and that's when Kira asked, what's going on in that room? And she's like, "Oh, I'm really glad you're here. Have a nice day." It was like really condescending and comforting at the same time, like you were sending your kids off to school, and this is way out of your pay grade, lady. You're not going to find out. But there's one tiny scene that they tease in this one where Catherine comes out of the room and she says it's like listening to 16 channels at once. And it's like, what are we going to do with him? They specifically say him. And then the line is something about Curtis comes in and says, well, his prediction was all off. He didn't account for Kira. So whoever's in there, and I honestly think it's another Jason. That's who I think's in there, is another time-traveling Jason. That's my thought for it. But there's a guy in there, and he's schizophrenic and crazy and is trying to help them. And she said, well, we're not getting rid of him until, because he could still be useful. So I hear you. Like, it took me a rewatch to get what was going on there for sure.
It was definitely confusing, and I've kind of got that in when they were talking about the timeline ripple description. It was a nice piece of sci-fi, but it was like way too confusing, guys. And I think they're doing that just to try and make people realize like this time travel stuff's difficult to figure out. So don't worry about it if you're confused. So I found that very, very confusing. Weird and confusing.
Bob, what's your worst or confusing? Would you say that one or something else?
Well, I had two. I had the reference to the Revolution, which was a little bit confusing, and the timeline ripple description. It's kind of like confusing for some people, and for people that know a lot about sci-fi and stuff like that, it was kind of a weak description. So, it was kind of like sloppy writing more than anything. It's some stereotypical answers, blah, blah, blah. Let's move on with the plot.
There's something really neat happening with Catherine, because if you guys caught it, I'm not sure if you did, because there's all the excitement of the visual coming into Kira of who her killer is. At the same time, Catherine is actually inviting her to permanently join the freelancers. And she says something along the lines that the Vancouver PD are not a suit for you. You should be with us. But she's not hearing it because she's staring into space and losing her mind. So there's definitely some kind of weird emotional psychological thing that Catherine is trying to do with Kira. And I think it's like a choice, and this is just my opinion, and somebody can call me out on it, that either they have to kill Kira or they have to have her join them. And that's the choice that she has. Just like Kira had the choice of choosing an Alec, Catherine's choice is either to bring her on board or, which I think that says that Curtis was directed to kill the other Kira. Yeah, I don't think he went all crazy on it, although he has a record of going a bit off.
Well, and also he might be much more senior person than anybody realizes. He might be...
That's the other thing. You got to think there's got to be other timelines. I mean, look at Escher. Escher, at some point in the timeline, was part of the freelancers and left.
Yep.
Curtis was part of the Liberate from the future, and now he's part of the freelancers. Kira is technically part of the freelancers. So it is getting kind of weird.
It's all rather confusing, isn't it? All right, so let's...
My confusing scene, though, is, and it's not a confusing, it's a worst scene. I actually had a worst scene.
Ooh.
When they get to the factory, and they have rigged the bomb, the biological bomb, there's that Liberate guy, and he says the worst bloody line ever: "Liberate yourself." And he drops the thing, and it was like, oh, so cheesy. It was so bad. Liberate yourself. Seriously.
And that was such that was almost like such a stereotypical standoff police procedural thing. And it was almost like I noticed that. Yeah, it was like they've got, and that actually really affected my score with this one. It's like they've gone back to a cop procedural. Okay, great. There was some interesting stuff in it, but it was very cop procedural. And with that in mind, Stephanie, what was the score?
Okay, so overall for this particular episode, it gave me all the elements of Continuum that I love the most. So therefore, I give it a 4.4.
Wow, who's generous?
I know. All that character development and the way that they're physically pounding character developed out of each other, and not just the Alec to Alec, but as you said, Jadine, the Emily and Alec, and the on and on and on, and that Curtis and Kira.
Confused about who to choose. Oh, it was amazing.
So I'm curious to see what Jadine's got to say.
I'm 4.3. So I went up a point for each episode. I totally agree with you. This is a setup. They're building these, and it's funny that we chose to do 3 at a time. Each one of these seems to be a really cohesive block of building to something. So either we have some kind of precognitive thing going on, or we're just super lucky. Either way, I'm happy that it's working this way, because what a shoe drop moment at the end to find out who your killer was, and then pull a gun on them, and what are we going to do? And everything unravels. And the amount of character stuff is fantastic. So definite solid 4.3. I almost could go higher. That is my highest mark so far, though. So
wow. I'm going to be... go ahead.
I was just going to say, and remember, we're talking about all that extra stuff, that very, 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 very last scene with Alex, and just the look of him. He's pounding on the glass.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Oh. And he yells at Kira.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint you guys. I gave it a 3.9.
Oh, that's okay.
Just
Oh,
brutalized it.
wow!
I know it was, I was in a bad mood that day, but really I watched it and it was like, it's a cop procedural. There were some of the scenes like that where the guy throws the bomb, and it was like I knew that was going to happen 10 minutes before it happened. I was being able, as soon as I can start predicting what's going to happen, I knew Alex wasn't going to meet her. I kind of had an inkling that Alex was either going to be killed or ended up in captured. So that was a bit, okay. I mean, it's all interesting stuff and not bad. It wasn't like a 3.2 or anything. It was well done. There was some interesting stuff in it. There was some great lines. But for me, sorry, there was just too many stereotypical things that I could pick it. So I gave it a 3.9. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. Wow.
And with that, we're 1 hour and 15
lines. Go, come on, give me a line.
You can have a goodbye line. You can have a goodbye, you goddamn addict.
One? Just one? Okay, so there's this point where they're getting to the factory and Carlos is talking to Kira and he hands her, he hacks at her like being like the super suit. Like he makes 3 or 4 hacks throughout the thing, but he hands her a bulletproof vest and he goes, for show. I just love it. He makes like 3 hacks on her. It's so beautiful. It's so good.
It's very, very good. All right, everybody out there in Crazy TV Talk Land, thanks for putting up with us. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. God damn it. Okay. Go ahead, woman.
Okay, it's just this other thing to look for, because I know if any of the fans out there are watching Continuum, there's some excellent, cool little extras that are in there as well. Like the fact that in episode 5, they throw out a Twitter hashtag that the characters have been using, and then you go down to Twitter and see what people are saying about it. So there's a lot of like other little cool interactive stuff to watch out for in the next couple of episodes, and I just throw that out there because it's all fun if we play together.
Exactly.
What's the hashtag?
It was liberate. Should I put it on the show notes? Okay, great. I'll put it in the show notes.
Liberate reveals or liberate share, something like that.
It says hashtag show notes. Is what it is.
It'll just be one giant.
100-point font. There you go.
They've actually been doing a great job with that. At the end of every episode, if you watch the credits, they throw up a hashtag for every episode. But Steph, you're right. That's the first time that they actually mention a hashtag in the show. But at the end of every show, they've been having a different hashtag for every episode. It's been really great that way. So if you ever want to follow the conversation, follow those hashtags. And a heads up that our next show will be June 6th, which is a Sunday. And that's when we'll record our next 3 episodes, 7, 8, and 9.
And they're going to be zingy ones already, because remember, we're building up to the end of the season. There's good stuff, but they got to make it better. It's got to be more exciting. They got to tie up some loose ends, and there's lots to go.
Well, the Dylan daughter thing is a whole left field thing that we're going to see come out.
That could be 3 episodes right there. Boom, boom, boom. Because remember, they had like liberate with the bombs and stuff like that, and that was kind of like the cop procedurally stuff that they were throwing in there, and that was kind of, it was okay, but it's like, let's do something weird, and they actually did it. So I'm very curious whether they're going to use that as another cop procedurally type thing to pull in more fans. We will see. So, from everybody out here in Crazy TV Talk Land, thank you for joining in and being patient with our crazy, crazy antic. This is an amazing series, and if you haven't watched it, great. If you have watched it, listen to the show and rewatch it, because you'll get way more out of it. It's almost like Breaking Bad. There was this great podcast for it, and you would listen to the podcast and I gotta watch that show again. Damn it! So that's definitely what's going to be happening to people listening to this show. Stephanie, thank you very much for coming on board. And she nods for our audio crowed.
Yeah.
Speak clearly into the
No,
mic.
I said thank you.
Oh,
it was a little.
It was a little thank you. And of course, check out our website, crazytvtalk.com. Download us in iTunes, rate us, subscribe to us. Tell us we're wrong and we're idiots and we don't know what we're talking about. We love that kind of interaction. And go make a great day, folks.
And 1 Hour, 19 minutes, and 9 seconds.
Last one was 120.
Yep. So basically the same. I just stopped this broadcast.